gonna say something, Dunny, about about Paul Pierce. I was thinking it when I was putting him up, and I'm like, I know he's gonna respond no matter what I do here, and it didn't fail.
Yeah, so the thing was, I knew I was gonna reply with something Paul Pierce related from my personal, but I actually was never going to suggest that we put.
I would hope
that we put Paul Pierce for the number 34, only because we've done quite a few Celtics already, and I've already marked off that we're gonna put Jalen down for 7 days away, and Tatum would be perfect for 0. Maybe we can do a Tatum and Lillard.
No, I think we can do that
for the day off.
Yeah.
Well, they're open. They're opening night, right?
Yeah, Celtics are one of
Celtics,
the
Sixers.
4 teams.
So that works. That's perfect.
Right. But we are live here, folks. So welcome back to another episode of the Triple H podcast, Happy Hour Hoops. We were just discussing how far away we are from the NBA season. Today, marking 34 days, just over a month away. But today we're talking Central Division, guys. It's a full crew today.
Yeah.
Jake, Donnie, Stevie, as always, joined by recurring guest Amari McPherson. What's up, guys? Ready to talk some ball, I assume?
Always.
You know
what we're here for.
Yes. Always. So, yes, Stevie, we don't have much news here, but I know we usually do some WNBA talk towards the or at least we have been doing it towards the end of the episode. But why don't you get us started here, since we don't have much news and notes, with some Aces talk?
Aces 1 win away. 1 win away. Great win last night over Connecticut Sun, and it was a kind of a reassuring win. Game 1, I know they won by 3, but they looked really bad. And first off, I'm just upset that the first game of the WNBA Finals was on Sunday at 3 p.m. during the first week of the NFL season. Why are you putting the game on there? You want to attract more attention. You want to get more eyes. Don't put it Sunday at 3 p.m. during the witching hour of week 1 of the NFL season. Like, what are we doing here? But besides that, I had the game on. I had 4 screens going on Sunday, so there was no worry there. Game 2 was a lot better. The environment in Las Vegas, that is one of the best environments of any of the WNBA locations. I love it there. It sold out both times. It's just a great environment. It really gets you into the game, and the Aces played so much better in game 2 than game 1. As you guys saw, I was hammering Aces minus 4.5. I was all over that last night, just because I looked at game 1, I watched game 1, and they just played really sloppy basketball. Kelsey Plum is, my favorite player in the league. She was terrible game 1. She couldn't get anything offensively. She really hasn't found her 3-point shot in the last 2 series. So game 2, she just starts taking to the basket. A'ja Wilson has been just automatic. She's been the MVP in the postseason as well as the regular season. And then Chelsea Gray, she left game 2 with a little bit of an injury, comes back and just dominates again. I was telling you guys before this, she's one of the most cold-blooded basketball players I have seen. The Aces, when you have your 3 stars each score 20 points or more, you're going to find success. That's only, I think, the 4th time in WNBA playoffs history that it's happened. 3 players on the same team, 20 or more points. And just a nice reassuring game 2 win, because Connecticut, not the greatest offensive team. They got a lot of size in the Aces. They play great defense, but the Aces really attacked inside the paint, and just their hustle on the boards was really impressive game 2 from game 1. They got out rebounded by 5 game 1. Game 2, they really stepped up. They really were going after the loose balls. 1 win away. Going to Connecticut now. The game's tomorrow. Usually there's like a 2-day gap sometimes when you go from home to away in these playoffs, but the game is tomorrow, so that'll be a fun one to watch alongside Thursday Night Football. But I can't wait. 1 win away. These Aces have been, like I said, they got me through summer. You said it, Donnie. We're only 34 days away from the NBA season, but the Aces got me about halfway there through summer. So I'm going to be sad to see it go. I'm going to be sad to see the season end, because I've gotten super into these playoffs and the regular season.
Yeah. WNBA is giving us that good stuff right now. The Aces, Kelsey Plum, Stevie's girl, as we know, is doing it all for us and kind of filling that void, if you will. And I think the I don't know if it's just me personally who's been paying a little bit more attention to it, but I feel like the WNBA has made a little more buzz this summer than I can remember in recent years. And as Jake has his WNBA hoodie on this episode as well, that's very fitting, Jake.
I did it.
But yeah,
I had to. Yeah, but yeah, no, I'm with you. I feel like it's every year. It's like more and more a little bit. Still don't understand. They got to figure out that scheduling. Like
They really do.
you gotta do it Monday night or something. Even like even that would have been a little, maybe not even Monday night, because that was still like 20 million people watching that football game on there. But yeah, gotta work on that. But it has been good to see, like just like the basketball talk too. Like I don't see like the same usual discourse that we've seen over the last couple of years. It's just talking hoops about it, and that's what
Right.
you need.
yeah. Well, unless we don't have anything else news and notes wise, you guys ready to jump right into this Central Division preview or what?
Oh yeah.
I'm so ready. The Central, I think, is going to be one of the most exciting divisions in all of basketball this year. I think all 5 teams have some sort of kind of excitement or questions to them, and I can't wait.
Yeah, it was definitely out of the divisions we've done so far. I think the win totals going over under on this division was the hardest for me. So that being said, let's get started with the Milwaukee Bucks. 51-31 last season, lost to the Celtics in the second round. Their win total for next season is over under 52.5. I have the over on this win total. Why don't we go around the horn here? We can start with Amari, go to Stevie, and then Jake. Amari, what are you thinking for the Milwaukee Bucks next season?
I think over. I think the Bucks will come back pretty hungry. Chris Middleton, he was injured in the playoffs. Giannis didn't have him going, as he went deeper into those playoffs. They kind of have a built-in excuse, if you will, for, their early exit being the defending champions. But I think going into next year, they'll be a little bit hungrier. Giannis is still the best player in the game after last season. We saw that. He's the best player on 2K, deservedly so. So I think they'll be pretty hungry. So I'm going to go over 52.5.
I'm actually probably going to be the only one here who's taking the under. I'm going under 52.5, and it's a slight under. It's kind of I like to take the slight under here because I think a lot of the teams have gotten better, and the Bucks kind of just brought back the same team, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. As you said, Amari, they are getting healthier. Like having Chris Middleton's going to be a big boost, but I've just seen so many other teams in both conferences add a lot of new pieces. They got new rookies this year, and the Bucks are just kind of staying put, and I don't think it's going to be a bad thing if they go under 52.5, because if they get to 50 wins, they're going to the playoffs. And as you said, Giannis is the best player in the world, but I think Giannis knows he's the best player in the world, and he's someone who I think right now could coast a little bit in the regular season. They just got to get in there, right? And then that's when he could take over. So I'm going to go under 52.5. I think we're going to see more kind of balanced win totals for a lot of the Eastern teams this year.
He said Giannis is going to take the LeBron route. He's going to coast and then turn it up in the playoffs. I like
Exactly.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going way over. Like where I was thinking last about 60 win teams in the Atlantic. This is one of those teams in the league. I think they could be best record in the league type thing, and it's because Giannis. The exact opposite of what you're saying, Stevie. I don't know if he can coast. I think that man is just a. He doesn't have an off button. Like he just goes hard the whole time, and he should. I'm with you. That's probably what they should be doing going forward, even though he hasn't really shown, like kind of even been slowing down even the way he does play every game to game. It's the other guys. It's the Drew Holidays and the Chris Middletons at the end of the year that really need to be healthy and really need to be available for them going forward. I could see it. I can definitely see how they could get under. Like you said, the East is just going to be a bear. So who knows how these games are going to play out. But looking ahead, like to where I'm looking at, like future stuff and everything else, like the Bucks are always going to be the team like that. They're going to be my favorite going into the year, probably because of spoiler. And just it's because of the singularity of how incredible Giannis is. And, they still have a good cast around him. Got to stay healthy. I am worried about aging guard Drew Holiday, as I feel like that's been the theme of all these previews that I brought up, is the aging guard. It's always my biggest worry. But yeah, give me the over. Give me them at like 55-ish, something like that. But this division, they're gonna have a fucking tough time with this division finally. Like for the first time, like even last year, Cleveland and Chicago's records were better last year, but they didn't really pose as much of an actual threat.
No, there was no threat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know if Chicago's going to as much this year because they've got a bunch of issues on their own, but Cleveland definitely can. And I think we're going to get to the Pistons later are going to be much improved. And then who knows what's going on with the Pacers, but I think they can go either direction really. But I think this is going to be a tougher division for them week to week, game to game to deal with. So give me a little slight over. I won't go 60 wins with them, but a slight over.
Yeah, my over is also just a slight, and it was pretty simple for me. Like some of these other ones I spent a good amount of time thinking about, but this one I looked at them getting 51 wins last year. That was without Middleton for the whole season. I think Giannis, the last 3-4 years, we've just seen, some years were drastic improvements and others have just been slight improvements, but he's improved every year. Even since after that championship run, I think Giannis has improved. So I am anticipating another improvement from Giannis and then having Middleton there. And that can cover, the 1.5 wins that they need to be better from last year. That's all it came down to for me. I thought taking the over was a little easy for me. But, guys, let's get to the burning question about the Milwaukee Bucks. Amari, since this is your first time doing the one of the division previews with us, we usually each do a question for each other and kind of go around and, we'll ask something about the respected team and all give our thought about it. But since there's 4 of us today, I'll kind of just pose a question to you first, and then we'll all discuss it as a group. But my burning question for the Bucks, and Jake actually gave me a little foreshadowing there, talking about his old point guards. But it is Jrue Holiday, and the question is, for 2 different reasons, will we see some regression from Jrue Holiday this year? 1 being the age, and then 2, he kind of has to change his role completely from what it was last year. Of course, he's played alongside Middleton before, and it worked. But he did just have a full season where he was the second option. He was the second scorer. He was the guy playing alongside Giannis. And we did see down the stretch in the playoffs, Jrue Holiday kind of went ghost in some of those games against the Celtics. Of course, a few of them he won single-handedly for them. But we did see some games where Jrue Holiday disappeared. I want to know what we see from Jrue Holiday next season. Will it be a regression? Is this something to worry about?
My answer is yes. I do see a regression with him as he, gets older a little bit. I think he'll still be pretty good, even if average. But like you said, playing alongside Giannis and he disappeared down the stretch. I think to me, it's clear, maybe not to other people, I don't know. But Chris Middleton, to me, is the clear number 2 alongside Giannis. So that's going to phase out Jrue Holiday as it is. He's going to automatically be the number 3. A lot of people before the championship run were, maybe not a lot of people, but you did hear like, oh, Chris Middleton is the closer. And he did tend to come through in those clutch moments down the stretch. And so he has that experience to not only get it done when it's most important, but he's a 20-plus point, point per game scorer alongside an MVP and the best player in the game. So, yes, I do see regression when it comes to Jrue Holiday. Like I said, I don't think it'll be too much. Even if he is average, I do still think he'll be a good and productive member of that team to get them into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think we may see slight regression. I think that's my kind of biggest concern with the Bucks is that they just don't really have much guard depth after Jrue Holiday. So they really have to have him play at the level he did last year. Because if he goes out, I mean, who are you going to throw there, right? If Jrue starts to regress or if he starts to get banged up, which a lot of these older point guards do, who are you going to have to replace him? I know Grayson Allen showed spurts in the postseason of having a couple big games there. You still have Connaughton. But George Hill, George Hill is as washed as wash can be. He's in the washing machine right now. I don't know. Jrue Holiday, I think he played really well last year, and I think it's going to be better for him with Middleton back because he can be that third man. He won't have to do as much. But that was kind of my biggest concern for the Bucks is just Jrue Holiday, if he doesn't perform like he did last year, or even if he takes a little bit of a step back, the Bucks don't really have as much guard depth as they have had in the past. And that's the biggest concern to me.
Yeah, they're an old ass team. They really are.
Yeah.
Like, you just take a quick look at their roster. There's a lot of guys with threes in that number instead of twos,
Yes.
and that's not what you want to see for a championship contender. I don't know, man. It just comes down to when you're looking at the especially when you get to a playoff situation. I'm picking 34 over mostly everybody else. Everybody else in the league.
Yeah.
Everybody else. And that works a lot of times, like it's in the NBA. Maybe it doesn't when you get to, we look at them in the last year in the second round, but they still took the team that went to the NBA Finals out of the East to 7 games, and it was Giannis doing anything and everything, even to the very end. Is there another level to Giannis? Like, there still might be. Like, we saw him. I mean, he went 9 for 9 a couple weeks ago from 3. It was a Europa League game and everything else, but if that shot ever is consistent, I don't know what you can do against him. And I feel like he's still getting better, which is the craziest thing to say. But he's only 27. Like 26, 27 is where generally you talk about guys just entering their prime. And we're talking about a former 2-time MVP and a former NBA champion here. So I don't give limits to him because he's already busted through every single one of them that anybody had on them. That being said, though, like you guys have been saying, those 3s on those rosters instead of 2s on that left side, it's very scary when you're talking about a contender.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that you brought that up, Jake, because it kind of ties into, I think, what Stevie first brought up about the Bucks is so many other teams around the league have either brought in free agents or, drafted rookies that are going to help their team immediately. But we saw a couple of years ago when the Bucks went all in on Giannis, they kind of punted their future a little bit.
Yeah.
They were like, we're going to have a really strong run for the next 4 or 5 years. We're going to keep our core, which is very good. Like, the core of their team, old or not, is super solid. Even Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis, those are guys who don't get enough love but are super important to this team. But they did punt it. They gave away draft capital. They gave away young assets at that time. They signed Giannis to a long-term deal, got Drew Holiday, and this is their nucleus now, and they kind of have to deal with that. So I think they already won. They got the championship. Obviously, They're striving for more, but I think ultimately that's why they're in this position. And yeah, they'll be as dominant. They'll be dominant for as long as Giannis keeps getting better. Like you just mentioned, Jake, he's not even technically in his prime yet. So I don't know if they should be all that worried about their future, but that's the reality of the situation. And if things do go south quick, it could get ugly for this Bucks organization. But obviously we know right now, probably going to be atop the East, most likely going to be atop this division, but fighting with your guys' Cavs. And we'll get to them right after we talk about the Chicago Bulls. 46-36 last season, lost to the Milwaukee Bucks, who we just talked about in the first round. Their over-under for next season is 43.5 wins. This one, again, like I said, these are pretty difficult for me. I am taking the under. I think the Bulls are one of those teams, like Steve mentioned, didn't really get better in my opinion. And then I have all the concerns in the world about Lonzo still and his injury and where he's at with that.
Definitely.
DeMar DeRozan's a year older. Zach LaVine's a guy who's dealt with his own injury problems. That's pretty much it for me. Like we mentioned, this is going to be a way tougher division than it was last year. The East is stronger. I went under, but Amari, what do you have on this 43.5 win total for the Chicago Bulls?
I'm going under too. Like you said, everybody's a year older. There's a lot of question marks. They got a lot of injury concerns right now, especially with Lonzo, who's supposed to be a starter. DeMar is getting older, but he still looks good. But that hot start they got off to last season, but they kind of curtailed steadily after the first 2 months or so. So I mean, we don't really know what the Bulls are supposed to be. They were only 10 games over 500 at the end of the season, but going into next year, like I said, a lot of question marks. I don't really see them getting better. And not to mention, like you said, we're going to get to the Cavs, and I see them being better. Not to mention, I already picked the Bucks being over on their win total. So to me, that just leaves the Bucks to keep going further down and down. So to me, I have the under. I don't really see them going that far, other than their starters. Not to say that they don't have good players off the bench, but I don't really see a lot of depth with them. So once you get past the starters, I mean, that's just kind of it. But yeah, I have the under on them.
I'm gonna disagree with you guys again. I'm going with the over for the Chicago Bulls, and I want to say this: I think they're going to be a very good regular season team. I don't think they're going to win a championship with this roster. I really don't think they're going to go far in the playoffs. But I think this roster is built for the regular season. Because I'm going to disagree with you, Amari. I think they do have a decent amount of depth right now. The big injury concern is Lonzo, and I get that. But you have young guards off the bench with Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, who have played real minutes in the NBA already, who can step into that role. DeMar has turned himself into a superstar, and Zach LaVine has basically been the 1B, 1A situation with DeMar. Patrick Williams should be healthy this year, and I think that's a big boost for him. And then you have down low, you have a full season with Vucevic, and you have Drummond to spell him if he needs to rest for some minutes. I think the Bulls have a deep roster where a couple injuries isn't going to hurt them throughout the year. They have a lot of guys they can plug in. We've seen guys like Derek Jones, Javonte Green step up when they were really banged up at some points last season. And I don't think any of these guys are superstars. I would put DeMar, I guess, right under that, like the tier under superstar. I love DeMar. You guys know that. I don't think they're going to win a championship, but I look at 43.5. That's 44-38 at cashes. I think the Bulls can almost be a 50-win regular season team just because I think they do have a lot of depth, and maybe not these guys won't be stars in the NBA, but they're going to have roles. They have a lot of young, explosive guards, and I'm not as concerned about the Lonzo injury. I think it could be a bad injury. He could be out for a while, but even if he's out for a while, I have confidence in guys like White and guys like Dosunmu to step into that role. Dosunmu, we saw last year, he had a lot of good games where he was kind of their end game point guard, where he could average 8-9 assists in some spurts. And yes, he had some bad games too, but he was a rookie. I like Chicago to have a great regular season and then kind of do what Chicago fans don't want them to do, kind of fall off come postseason when it gets to become a more defensive, more physical type of game. Chicago very well could lead the league in scoring and points allowed this year, and I wouldn't blink an eye.
That number is perfect. I feel like it's right where it needs to be. I'm with you because I don't know. I'm going under. I'm sticking with my gut, and I'm going under. And it's because I do like the guard depth, like you said. I think that I'm not as worried about Lonzo. I mean, I am worried about Lonzo himself. I hope he gets healthy and everything else. But the way it relates to this team, I think they can fill it up. They got Goran Dragic on this roster now too, who will be able to spell guys and everything. They will be a decent regular season team. It feels like 43 and 44 is like perfect for them with the way the East has improved and everything else. But there's got to be. I think Cleveland and Atlanta are both better teams than them now, and somebody's got to move out of that top 8, and it feels like the Bulls are that team there. And the biggest worry for me, it's the same thing I talked about last year. It's the same thing I'm going to talk about this year. It probably will rear its head more in the playoffs than it will during the regular season. But defensively, they're just going to they're not going to be a good defensive team with Nikola Vucevic and Tristan Thompson and Andre Drummond as their bigs, especially. Like, there's no rim protection. They don't have great wing defenders. They don't have good guard defenders at all. Like, who's the plus defender on it? Javonte Green is a plus defender. I will give him that. Caruso's a good defender. Other than that, it scares me. It terrifies me with this team. I do think that they need to, offensively especially, we see the limitations that DeMar-led offense has in the playoffs too, just with how effective it can be. There's got to be some kind of like passing the baton to LaVine to be like fully the 1A, like you said, to DeMar's 1B this year, and maybe that unlocks something different offensively for them later in the season, later in the playoffs, and everything else. It's just the same. It's the same things as last year, though. Just defensively, I was really hoping they would trade for Rudy Gobert, which is crazy because I don't think any team should want Rudy Gobert that bad, really. But it would have been perfect for this team, perfect for the problems that they have. And maybe playoff-wise, offensively, they'd still rear its head. But him on that starting lineup instead of Vucevic would have made me feel a lot better. So I'm going with the slight. I think 43. I think they'll be 43 and 37 and like the 8-9 seed, and that's where we see. I'm giving away my game a little bit with Cleveland here, but Cleveland and Atlanta sneaking up and taking that one of those spots from the Bulls.
Yeah, it's. I remember when the Vooch deal happened. I never thought it was really that great of a fit. I think we've seen that. It's definitely exciting. If I was a Bulls fan,
they had to do it, right? Like,
right?
Yeah.
I think they built a great starting five when they made that deal, but it was almost like the writing was always on the wall. It's like, is he going to be a needle mover in the playoffs? He's an aging big who is far more of a scorer than anything else, and he's fantastic at it. And honestly, doesn't get enough love for how good of a scorer he is. But it was never a good fit. Like Jake said, they don't have a defensive presence. Bringing in Drummond and Tristan Thompson is not going to change that. I think Drummond's a good bench piece. I don't think Tristan Thompson deserves to have a job in the NBA anymore. I really don't. I saw enough of him his last stint on the Celtics, and it was ugly, and he's been on a few teams since then. So and one guy I want to bring up, not necessarily having anything to do with the Bulls, but Jake, you mentioned Goran Dragic. I absolutely love that he decided not to go back to the Nets and was really the only player that had the stones to call the Nets out. He basically said when he didn't return to the Nets, it was because of how toxic the environment was. There was games where Dragic was cooking in the playoffs when he got in, but Nash was only putting him in games when they were far out of reach. And you could argue for most of that Celtics series that Goran Dragic, when he played, was the most consistent guy. It's pretty cool to see that, the Nets build this championship roster. Goran says, I'll go play in Chicago with DeMar and LaVine and take my chances rather than stay in this toxic team. So props to Goran Dragic on that one. But we do still have to get to the burning question here. And I think if we mashed everything that we talked about together, it boils down to my question is like, what is the future for the Chicago Bulls? We mentioned Vucevic, the aging center. DeMar is another year older. Zach LaVine has been a guy who has been in constant trade talks before he got to Chicago and even since he's been there. Even DeMar's been a guy who's been involved in trade talks. Lonzo Ball as well, just, between trades and the injury, it's like, what the hell is even going on with Lonzo's knee? So, yeah, I guess my question to you guys is broad. You guys can go which way you want with this, but I don't think they're a team that's competing for the championship right now. Their window is thin because of the age of their stars, and they have a few good young pieces, but I don't think it's anyone that they can build around once these all-stars move on from the Chicago Bulls. So, where are you guys at with the Chicago Bulls' future?
Go ahead, Mario.
Go ahead, Mario.
All right. To me, it's murky. We'll talk about those question marks. Zach LaVine, you said, he's been in trade talks. He did just sign that contract extension. To me, with that contract extension, if they make him the center focal piece of that team, even if Lonzo's there alongside with him, wherever DeMar is, he gets older, he's going to regress some, even if he's still on the team or not. If they make him the focal point, to me, I still see them, they could possibly make the playoffs, but to me, they become that first round, second round ceiling, kind of like the Clippers were just about every year, where they're okay if, they get to the second round. That's kind of a win to them. But I agree with you. They're not competing for a championship now. They're not going to be competing for one anytime in the near future. But I do see them having winning seasons, making the playoffs, trying to battle for maybe second or third place in the division. But that's kind of it. I don't really see anything further with them right now. And like I said, we don't know what that roster is going to look like in a couple of years. But if they don't trade LaVine and he's the centerpiece, that's kind of it to me. And I think he'll be good enough to kind of get them to a winning season. But that's it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Amari, and I think that's kind of why I took the Bulls over. Is I think they're going to be that good regular season team that's just kind of stuck in the mud for the next couple of years, where they're a good team. They're an exciting team. They're fun to watch. They got a lot of exciting players, but no one's going to be like, oh, this is a team that's built to win a championship. And that's kind of the worst spot you want to be in if you're an owner, right? Because you don't want to be a team that's, hey, we have a good team, but we're not good enough to win, but we're also not bad enough to, get draft picks, get assets to really accelerate a rebuild. So the Bulls have a tough decision to make where they probably have to trade off a few of their key pieces and probably go full rebuild after a couple of years, because I don't see them winning in a few years, but I do like the young core. It's also crazy to me too, because I feel like DeMar is finally really kind of broken out into the player we maybe not thought he was going to be, but he had the potential to be, and he's 33 years old. Like, he's going to regress. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's 33. Doesn't feel that way when you watch DeMar the past couple of years. It feels like he's 26, 27, just entering his prime. But no, he's 33 years old. Vucevic's 31. LaVine is the future, but that's not that long of a future. And then you've got these young players I really like Dosunmu and Patrick Williams. I can even throw Kobe White and Lonzo Ball in there, but none of them have really proven themselves yet. Patrick Williams could be that defensive presence they need this year. He could be that stretch forward that they need to have a role, but he's dealt with injuries in his past. Lonzo dealt with injuries. Kobe White dealt with injuries, and then you got Ayo, who's just a rookie. It's year 2 for Ayo. So the Bulls, to me, are in that toughest spot to be in as a franchise, because they're like, we have a good team, we have an exciting team, we have a fun team, but in the back of their heads, all the ownership's thinking is this team's never going to win a title. And that's what the owners care about, right? They just want to win championships for their city. So I think we're going to see the Bulls kind of coast the next couple of years, kind of be right where they were last year, right around the high 40s wins, and then it could be a complete rebuild after that.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of hope for the future. Everything you guys just said, I don't need to say much more about it. I mean, I think it's the Vucevic and DeRozan factor. They wanted to be good and wanted to be competitive, and it wasn't. I don't even think it was as much to try to win a title. I think it was as much to keep Zach LaVine around and sign him to that big deal and be like, we're serious about this. And the thing about Chicago is if they decide to, sell off a Vucevic and get rid of a DeMar DeRozan at some point after this season, they're going to be a big free agent destination for any team if they're willing to spend the money. I mean, people are always going to consider the Bulls going forward, depending on who those free agents are. I know that there's in this town, there's a lot of talk about Giannis, that they wanted that's the guy they want to target. Who knows? I don't think he's ever leaving Milwaukee, but it's
never know.
That's the pipe dream here. Is it's Giannis down the road to just come an hour and a half down the lake and live here. So, but I do think that's the goal. I think it is. I think it was look like a serious team for a while to get LaVine to stay around, and then kind of move into the next phase of getting another star next to him but it's a weird middle ground, and it can be messy when you got older stars that are going to do that. So yeah, you guys put it perfectly. That's my concerns with it too. But I do think that is kind of what they're thinking is they're going to go right after another star, whoever that may be, when someone is available, if this kind of gets on rocky roads this year.
Yeah. What was up with Giannis saying that a few months back? Just, maybe I'll play for the Bulls down the road.
I think he's
on the edge.
I really do.
Not giving him any hope.
I know Milwaukee fans were freaking out when that happened, and it's funny too because
especially the Bulls too. Especially that would be hurt for Bucks fans. That would hurt.
Yeah. And Giannis is always the guy who is either 1000% serious, could not be more game mode at the podium, or is taking a sip of Coors Light and telling the media that he doesn't like it, or talking about Chick-fil-A nuggets. So there's no in between. Yeah.
The Oreos.
He's either fucking around on the podium or complete serious, MVP mode. Basketball is the only thing that matters. So I don't blame Milwaukee fans for them being a little scared. They're like, well, wait, which Giannis are we getting here? Was that serious, or is he just fucking around right now?
Yeah, you don't ever want to hear that.
No. But something you guys did like to hear, your Cavs, who just scored Donovan Mitchell recently. Amar, we've already talked to Jake about it. I guess before we get into the win totals and stuff with the Cavs and the burning question, I'd like to hear your opinion a little bit about you guys signing Donovan Mitchell there. How's that feel?
Still haven't come down yet because it still doesn't seem real. I mean, the news of that trade came out of nowhere, and you think it's. Crazy. I mean, I don't want to bring this up, but kind of like the Browns with his name's forgetting me, but
Deshaun
anyway,
Watson.
Yeah, when we thought we were out of it, Cleveland could be a possibility, blah blah blah, and then you're not in it anymore, and then all of a sudden the deal's done. So it kind of reminded me in that sense, but yeah, it still doesn't feel real. Obviously, today was his introductory press conference. It's starting to feel more real. We're starting to get closer to the season. Obviously, fans are very excited. I'm excited. I think it'll be a good fit for starters. I think, obviously, Mitchell is better than Sexton. I don't even think Sexton is a bad player. I just think what he does doesn't fit what this team wants anymore, especially with the emergence of Darius Garland after last season. So I think the combination of him and Donovan Mitchell will be very good, especially with that front court, the very talented and young front court that they have. They can score from the mid-range and down low and protect the paint at the same time. So I think it'll be very good, which I guess I don't have to give you my answer for the over-under. You can already guess by that. But yeah, very excited, very excited.
Yeah, so
going up.
Yeah, that win total is 46.5. Amari said he doesn't need the number because it's over regardless. I'm in the same camp, man. I think sky's the limit for this Cavs team. I think it's, that they're super impressive last year, 44 wins. Me and Jake talked about their win total last year. What was it? I know I've already asked you this on the podcast.
Oh, it was low last
29
year.
and a half.
27 and a half or 29
Oh,
and a half. Yeah,
Al,
I just remember Al hitting us up and being like, "What do we do with the Cavs?" We're like, "Is over." Like immediately, we're like, "Over, hit that over." Immediately." And they smashed it. 44 wins last year. We know last season, the end of the season, it was rough. Jared Allen was in and out of the lineup. It was hard to get some good chemistry down the stretch there for the Cavs. They lost to the Hawks in the play-in, but I think we're all in agreement here. Over. I see Stevie here has the over on that 46.5 wins. Jake, I'm sure you're in the same boat as Amari. It doesn't matter the number, you're taking the over. But yeah, I mean, this is an exciting group, and yeah, I think there's no reasons why they aren't 2.5 wins better than last year, especially like I just said, like towards the end of the season, they weren't even entirely healthy. Now you add a legit star to this squad. Garland's a year older, a little bit more polished. Yeah, this was one of the easier ones in this division to take the over. Yeah. We talked about it. We talked about it last time, and I'll let you go, Stevie, because I'm not going to say much. I already went into it last week or a couple weeks ago, whenever. They added to their fastball with Mitchell, and this team would have been a 50-win team last year if they stayed.
Yes.
Like, no doubt in my mind. With Mobley and Allen both didn't get hurt, literally back-to-back, too. Like, they didn't get to play with each other. If they were healthy the whole year, easy 50-win team. So as long
Ricky
as
Rubio didn't tear his ACL.
That, too.
Yeah.
Like it was all
Jared Allen getting hurt at the end of the year was killer.
They had shit luck last year, and we're still the surprise team of the league. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I love the over. I think they probably have potentially the best defensive two bigs like pair in the NBA this season with Mobley and Allen. I love them. And this is no disrespect to Donovan Mitchell, but I don't think maybe at the end of this year, but the end of next year, or even partly through, so 2 years from now, Evan Mobley is going to be the clear best player on the team. I have loved this guy from the draft. We've talked about him when we did the college basketball shows, how much we love Mobley. I think the sky's the limit for him. And to have him getting into a year two where you normally see a jump, not only did we see Garland make the jump last year, but he improved throughout the year. As the year went on, we saw how good of a player Darius Garland is. Now you had a guy like Donovan Mitchell who could score 40 points really any night. He could just get hot and he's just not going to miss. You pair that with two of the best defensive bigs, and I really think Mobley, we're going to see his offensive game take a big jump this year. I love this Cavs team. I really do. I think they have a lot of pieces to be a really good team for not just this year, but for years to come. And I think they're just headed in the right direction. I know they gave up a lot for Donovan Mitchell, but you know what? When everyone else is making moves, you got to make a move too. So I really like that Cavs ownership said, we're just going to go after and get this guy. And Jake, you brought it up. The only thing they're really missing is that forward position, maybe a couple of years down the road.
It's coming.
LeBron James.
Maybe.
Before we get off the topic, can we talk about how Mobley was robbed of Rookie of the Year? Come on. I know I'm biased, but come on.
It hurt.
I think it was because Scotty he played, I think, more consistently throughout the year. I think Mobley was better than him at the end of the season, but Scotty from game 1 to game 82 was really an impact player for the Raptors. And the hardest thing with Mobley is Allen was very, very, very good too. Outside of Toronto, just plays like a 5-6 man rotation, really. So you just see Scotty all the time, and Pascal was the guy, but Scotty was the other one everyone was talking about. With the Cavs, and it's not to take away from Mobley's rookie season, Darius Garland was the one everyone was talking about for the Cavs because no one really expected him to turn into the guard he was last year. But to your point, Amari, Evan Mobley is going to be the best rookie in this class, and I don't think it's going to be close when it's all said and done.
No, they got to steal.
I was going to say, and in Toronto's defense, they did have a better record down the stretch.
Yeah.
They were more consistent as a team than Cleveland was down the stretch. Obviously, they made the playoffs while the Cavs didn't. So I get it, but I'm just saying. To me, it could have been more.
We actually, I think it was our last preview, we're all just talking about how big of Scotty Barnes fans that we are, but even I'm like the biggest Scotty Barnes fan. I think Mobley's the better talent, and it's like Stevie said, I think it's a pretty wide margin. So I'm in agreement there as well. Let's get to the burning question here. It's kind of a two-part, and they really don't have all that much to do with each other, just two teammates on this team. The first one is the man of the hour, Donovan Mitchell. Utah last year, he averaged just under 26 points a game. Clearly was getting to that superstar level in Utah. He won games single-handedly for them sometimes. He had some, impressive playoff moments. Obviously, we don't really think of the Utah Jazz as a great playoff team because they never really were able to advance. But Mitchell definitely had his moments. What do you like as far as stardom goes? Is he more of a superstar in Cleveland? Does he kind of take that next step? Is this a guy who we even see average close to 26 points per a game? Or are the Cavs that good where, he's closer to 20 points a game, doesn't really have to take a step, and kind of everything just works almost how it did last year for the Cavs? Like, they had such a good nucleus, everyone kind of fed off each other. Or do we see Mitchell come in and take another level of stardom?
I guess I'll go. I'm in agreement with the second part of your question because that was going to be my answer. To me, he won't need to be the guy that he was in Utah, but I do think he'll still average around 24, 25 points or so. But like you said, to your point, he won't need to be the star that he was in Utah because of that surrounding cast that he has in Darius Garland that averaged over 20 points and was an all-star himself. And obviously Evan Mobley. To me, that forward position is a question mark. We don't really know what we're going to get out of that on a nightly basis. But between him, Kevin Love coming off the bench, he won't need to really score that much. But I still think he'll average about 24 to 25 points a game. He'll be the leading scorer. He'll be the number one, but he won't need to be that superhero that scored 50 points in back-to-back playoff games to try to get them to the next round.
Yeah, I don't think he will need to be that guy either, but I don't see his scoring taking too much of a drop off just because I think Darius Garland is an incredible playmaker. And I think that's going to be one of the best playmakers Donovan Mitchell's ever played with, to really just get him the ball in good situations, good shooting situations. So I can see Donovan Mitchell averaging around 25, 26 a game still. But I think to Amari's point, he doesn't have to do that, right? There can be a game Donovan Mitchell will only shoot maybe 12 times. He scores 15 points or something. And then you have Garland step up. Or like I said, I think Mobley's going to take a bigger step offensively this year. Jared Allen will have his games. You have the classic Kevin Love game where he would score 20 points off the bench. Like, you have situations like that in the Cavs where they can spell Mitchell's scoring. But I love the combination of Garland and Mitchell because I think Garland's just going to help Mitchell become maybe not a better overall scorer, but a more efficient scorer.
Well, yeah, he's I mean, Mitchell's never played with a guard like Darius Garland. I think that's easily never played with a talent like that. Mm-hmm. Never played with an offensive talent like that at all. I really don't think in his career. So the sky is the limit. I think Garland was like 21-8 last year, or something like that. I could see it being like 19 and closer to 10 even. I'm so excited about the pick and roll possibilities that this team is going to have, and just what they're going to be able to do with you when you don't know coming down the floor if it's going to be Garland and Mitchell running with Mobley and Allen and whoever else. And like you said, Amari, who knows what that forward position is going to be. I'm still holding out hope for my boy Lamar Stevens. I think he's got the highest ceiling of everybody. And Lamar Stevens very, very, whatever. But
if you ask me, we had a forward, but we traded the wrong guy. Okoro was right there. And
that's who it really, that's the thing.
Him. Yeah, the Jazz would have to want him in order for that trade to work, but come on, like he was right there. Just swap the pick.
He's the guy.
Who would you would have swapped him with? Okoro with who?
Abaji.
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 I completely agree.
To see what he does. Yeah,
me too. I loved him at Kansas. I mean, you saw he took his game to the next level in the tournament. He didn't miss anymore. But I agree. I don't think Utah probably would have done that. No. I'm sure
Abaji
the Cavs probably tried that swap.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Abaji and Sexton together is theoretically the scoring punch that you're getting from Mitchell. Like point is maybe production wise, maybe Mitchell is just, you'd rather just have Mitchell. Like I said, they added to their fastball no matter what. But I think Garland's job, obviously, if you watch Cavs games by the end of last year, it was Darius Garland doing everything, like just orchestrating everything to get offense going. They had so much trouble getting offense in late in games, especially if you watch those two play-in games. I mean, that's what really hurt them, was late in those games. Just everybody knew it was like, Garland's going to come down, either he's going to shoot or try to kick it to somebody and go from there. And also just, I mean, you talked about it earlier, CB, Jared Allen's injury killed them too, because he just wasn't the same offensive threat. Even if he was still, he still looked good when coming back from that injury, but it just wasn't the same as it was early in the year. So
it was a hand injury too, right? So it's like, that's so tough in basketball, because guys come back from it. You're just
thinking about it the whole time too.
Yeah.
It's a mechanics thing, it's a mental thing, and then a guy his size who plays at the rim, like as soon as you hit that hand off the rim, it spirals again. Mm-hmm. But before we move on, this is not another burning question. I said it's kind of two-part. This is more of like a lukewarm question for you guys. But he was brought up. K-Love, I think, is going to be very interesting on your guys' Cavs next year for a few different reasons. We know Markkanen got shipped. He was part of the deal. And he played good minutes for the Cavs last year. And in recent years, we've kind of seen K-Love regress. He's kind of just been like that fun-loving dude, the older guy on the bench, the old vet who like still has it and can come in and give you a 20-piece. But is this Mitchell trade and then them kind of revamping their whole outlook for next season, is that going to rejuvenate K-Love a little bit? I mean, we saw last year how him embracing that six-man role made him find a new love for the game. He was even campaigning for himself to win Sixth Man of the Year. So we know K-Love still has interest. We know he still has game. And it's been a minute since he's played with a guy of Mitchell's talent. I mean, we know how good he was when Kyrie and Braun were there. I guess just like, a few words from any of you guys on K-Love, because he's been one of my favorite players since his T-Wolves days. I think it's hard not to like Kevin Love. So, I guess it's more so of a question for Jake and Amari. But, Stevie, feel free to jump in here, too. Like, what do you guys think of K-Love on the Cavs next year?
To me, I could see it being kind of the same. Like I said, he was rejuvenated after last season, really embracing that six-man role. And for a large portion of the season, he was either one of the highest scorers or the highest scorer off of the bench. Obviously, Jordan Clarkson comes to mind, but, I mean, that's a cheat code. He basically plays starter minutes. But anyway, the reason why I say that is because there was multiple times last season where I even tweeted it. There was multiple times in the game where I'm like, where's Kevin Love at? Why isn't he out there? He can get you a bucket if you need one, especially from three. He has that ability. So I think with Markkanen not being there, it's a possibility that he has more opportunities and more minutes to play in those opportunities and get those chances that maybe Markkanen was in for. So not to say that I see an increase in production. I can even see a slight decrease in production, but I think it'll be pretty similar to last season because he knows that, this Cleveland team could really go somewhere, especially if he himself embraces the role that he has now, because we saw the difficulties that he had, rumors between him and Sexton, and being part of that championship core, and then kind of being the leftover that, that was still there after Kyrie and LeBron left. But as long as he does what he needs to do, I could see it being a very similar season that we saw from last year.
I'll let the other Cavs fan go.
Amari said it perfectly. I think the role is there, and I honestly think he's a Cav for life at this point. That contract ends up this season. I don't think they're going to move him. I think that this is the squad they're going to go with, and I think that he's just got a spot there for the rest of his time if he wants it in the league. I think that if he wants to re-sign or go, I don't think he's going to be chasing the bag. He got his bag. This was a gift. This contract was a gift. It was a thank you. It was a thank you note for everything that he did, and he got it. You remember that picture? Well deserved for sure. But I think that he's a guy that's been loyal and genuinely loves Cleveland and loves this core and everything. And so I expect him to be in this role as basically their, whatever you want to call it, their old vet, their Andre Iguodala, their Udonis Haslem, whatever else. I think he's going to be there.
That's just disrespectful.
I mean, much better at basketball than Udonis Haslem.
I was going to say he's a lot more
slightly better than Udonis, right?
I'm just saying, you're going to see Kevin Love at 41 years old on the end of the bench waving.
I literally almost brought that up too, and I was just like, I can't put him in the same conversation as Haslem because Haslem is just like
Haslem's
a meme at this point.
I don't know. Why is he not?
You understand what Jake means by that, right?
Of course.
He's happy to be there. He's a part of the team. No matter what his role is, he's going to be satisfied, and that's the biggest key with Kevin Love. As long as he's happy and he's enjoying what his role is for playing basketball there, he's going to be fine. He's going to be successful with him. He doesn't care if he's getting 35 minutes. He doesn't need Jordan Clarkson's 36 minutes off the bench. He can do what he needs to do in 20 minutes some games. And I think that's the biggest key for Kevin Love. I think he's happy in Cleveland. I think he just wants to be there, and he's aware enough to know what his role is at this point. Not to mention, too, you have that type of veteran leader for a young team that really doesn't have too much experience in the playoffs and what it takes down the road. That's a key piece. That's something any team would love to have coming off their bench.
A young Evan Mobley, too.
Though, that's true. Biggest thing we haven't mentioned, though, is that we will be going to war with all mascots all season because we got Robin Lopez on the squad. And that's the edge right there.
That's halftime entertainment all season.
I gotta shout out the Cavs too for taking Isaiah Mobley. To have your young player, the player you're going to build around, and then just go grab his brother. That's awesome. I just love seeing that. I love when I see the brothers play together, because you see it happen all the time in the NBA.
Like the Morris twins in Phoenix.
Yeah, it just seems like it was just a great pick. It's a good fit, and it's also a pick too. Regardless of what you think of as the player of Isaiah Mobley, it's the Cavs saying, "Hey, we want to make Evan Mobley happy. He's our future. He's who we want to build around. Let's go get his brother."
Yeah, they know where the bread is buttered at this point.
Yeah,
and that's not to say that they can't develop him either and make him part of the team in the future.
Dude, absolutely. No, he's a good player. He's a great player.
Yeah, so I mean, we think Cavs and Bucks are going to be at the top of this division, and I think by a mile, Cavs are best vibes in this division, maybe even best vibes in the East currently. With this Mitchell trade, with the more you look into the Cavs roster, and I'm not even just trying to gas you guys up right now, but I mean, the more I look at it, the more the depth pieces we talk about, it's really hard not to be excited about this group. All the players on this team are guys who are so easy to root for. We mentioned Kevin Love, Robin Lopez. I mean, yeah, he's going to be like a 10th, 11th man for you guys, but he's solid and someone who's just kind of a fun-loving big to have on the team who fights mascots. Like, lot of fun, a lot of things to look forward to for the Cavs. So I'm excited for you guys, honestly, and hopefully we get a Cavs Celtics Eastern Conference Finals. But before we get ourselves too jazzed up on that, let's talk about the Indiana Pacers. 20. That's how I feel too, Stevie. 25-57 last season. Missed the playoffs, obviously. The over-under for this year is 24.5 wins. I kind of have a two-part thing to this. Just because there's been a lot of rumblings this summer and even a little bit lately too. Miles Turner has been, well, he's been in trade talks for like the last 6 years, but Buddy Hield as well. We keep hearing trade rumors about those two. So if those guys stay and are with this group for, at least till the trade deadline, I think the over hits with this group because I think those two and Halliburton are good enough to hit 24.5 wins. I think if those two are traded before the season, though, I think this is way under 24.5.
Go ahead, Amar.
What do you guys think?
I think it's close, but I think it's over, but not by very much. Like you said, with Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, obviously he had the injury last season. If he can stay healthy, and I see in the notes, if they don't move them, I think it'll be over. But, if they do move them, then yeah, it'll be a pretty sorry season for them. But I have it right now as over, but not by very much. It's just kind of them two at the top right now. And so we'll just see what they do. It's a lot of question marks, maybe with those rumors, maybe that as a whole, that team morale goes down. We'll see. Maybe they rally and play better. We don't know. But right now, that's kind of where it is. I still have them under 30 wins, but over what the over-under is.
I got them over, and I think, Dunny, you kind of put it perfectly, where if there is a Buddy Hield, Miles Turner deal, then it is going to be tough to get to that over. But last year they were a 25-win team. They hit the over. They hit the over last year. I think they hit the over this year, and I think they're a better team than they were last year. They get Halliburton for a full year, which I know everyone still doesn't understand why the Kings traded him away, but we love Halliburton here. I think he's a great player. You guys know how much I love Ben Mathurin. They took him in the draft. Ben Mathurin, I think, is probably a top 3, top 4 player in this entire draft class. I know he's 20 years old. He's super young, but he's got a ton of potential, and I think him working alongside with Halliburton is going to be huge for his development. And then you got guys like Chris Duarte, who had a pretty promising rookie year. He had some flashes. They got some good pieces here, but it is a matter of, are they going to keep Buddy Hield and Miles Turner? Or are they going to go into a full rebuild, trade off for extra picks, assets, whatever you name it? But just in the gambling mind, you know how I have my gambling mind here. I just look at this Pacers team. They were a 25-win team last year. Over-unders 24.5 wins. I think they're a better team than they were last year, so I'm just going to take the over and just hope that they keep this team together, because I think they're going to be interesting to watch a little bit. I know just for Mathurin and Halliburton alone that they'll be an interesting team to watch. I love Ben Mathurin. I think anytime he touches the ball, he can turn on to a walking highlight reel, but he probably has a few growing years, a little bit of growing pain, but I still think this Pacers team at least has a little more excitement than they've had in previous seasons.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the guards, but I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. I think Detroit, when we get to them, I think they've obviously gotten better after last year. I think Orlando got better, and those are the only two teams they were ahead of. So for that reason, I am going under and think they will probably be the worst team in the league.
Okay.
Ooh.
I just don't see. I don't like having great guard. Everybody has great guards. That's the thing. Like,
Yes.
great guard play is not hard. It's like finding running backs. It really is like everybody's got a good one. So they don't have anything else though. Like anything else. Is Aaron Nesmith gonna get like 27 minutes a game for them? That's kind of scary. Donnie, you tell me how scary it is.
That is scary. I'm rooting for Aaron. I hope he finds a shot, man. Wasn't happening. Daniel Tice is there too. He's still playing in the Europa League right now. Team Germany just knocked off Giannis yesterday, so Tice is high right now. But
stock has never been higher.
let's get to the burning question here. It was going to be about Halliburton, but we're going to talk about him at the very end of the show. So I'm going to pivot here quickly on you guys. Hield and Turner, I mentioned them. Two great pieces of this team, probably two of the more talented players on this team. Where do you guys, it's a little off the topic of Pacers once I ask this, but where do you guys see destinations for Hield and or Turner if they are to get moved? Or, do you think this is a team that maybe looks at guys like Hield and or Turner and kind of have the mindset that Stevie does? Like they have, they got Ben Mathurin in the draft this year. They have some other good young talent. I mean, we know how good Halliburton is. Do they say, maybe we have a good enough core to compete in the East? Like, what do you guys think the actual move here with these two pieces is?
I'm gonna bring up this team only because I want it to happen, and I wanted it to happen last season. For the Lakers, I see Buddy Hield for his 3-point shooting, but at the same time, as I'm thinking about it, I can also see maybe Milwaukee. And obviously, I'm ignoring contracts and salary cap and all that. But I could see him going to Milwaukee. I could see them making that trade to have more consistent perimeter shooting because we saw his name escapes me, point guard. You know who I'm talking about. We talked about him earlier. But with him regressing over the course of the season, and with Middleton being out, they would need some. He could probably provide a little bit of defense maybe, but also his perimeter shooting is pretty good. Obviously, he's been wanted by other teams. I could see him being moved to Milwaukee to help them down the stretch, and especially into the playoffs as they get towards, maybe Boston, who knows, Miami, Cleveland, to help them get back to the championship. So that's two teams that I could think of. But with Miles Turner, I don't really know. I know he's a pretty versatile big, but right now in my mind, I don't really have a team. I hate to say it, but I don't really have anybody. Maybe the Clippers. Who knows? They always seem to pick up productive. I don't want to say leftovers, but people that they pick up and they become pretty productive members of their team, even if they aren't starting. So maybe that's my pick, the Clippers.
It's funny you brought up the Milwaukee Bucks because I actually think it's completely like wild card pick here, but I actually think Miles Turner would be an interesting fit in Milwaukee because that would be a big that would help him defensively, and he also can stretch the floor. He can shoot a little bit from the outside himself, and if the Pacers are going to get a deal done, if Milwaukee was looking at a Buddy Hield, why not add Miles Turner in and then give him a package deal back, see what you can get. But I don't know. Right now, I think Lakers is a great fit for Buddy Hield. I just don't see any team going after these guys yet. It could be more of a mid-season type of deal, right? If Indiana's really struggling and they want to sell off pieces. But for right now, I think the Pacers are going to hold put on both these guys. And it probably is going to be like what we see with a lot of these bad teams. A third of the way into the season, they're like, hey, we're not going to make the playoffs. It's time to ship these guys off to teams that we're going to see throughout the year that may need extra help. Not saying it would happen, but the Mavericks are like, we need more shooting. They could go after one of these guys. I think Milwaukee could be in play for both these guys. You look at even the young teams. You look at some young teams that could maybe get a little bit of help. And I know they're not veterans, but they've had more years under their belt to help some of these young and upcoming teams to get one of these guys. But for now, I think they're both going to stay put.
Listen, I'm just saying Russell Westbrook listed his house for sale yesterday, apparently, in LA. So I'm with you, Amari. That's all it is.
Yeah, I think both these guys could be great fits in LA, honestly. I think there's several. I'm honestly surprised one or both of them haven't got moved yet. So maybe it is more the Pacers leaning towards keeping these guys because I can list, I think, 20 teams that could benefit from a Buddy Hield or a Miles Turner. I've been trying to put Miles Turner on the Charlotte Hornets on my own for like it's what seems like years now. I don't know like why they haven't gone after an athletic big who can stretch the floor. Miles Turner, for some reason in my head, just fits so beautifully with that young nucleus they have right now. Like I think Rozier, LaMelo, and Miles Turner would be just a great three or a great trio to have on that squad. But I can only do so much here on Happy Hour Hoops, and apparently the Charlotte Hornets and MJ aren't listening to me. But let's move on to this last team here, the Detroit Pistons, the Bad Boys, a team that everyone is getting amped about. It seems like they had all the buzz during Summer League and the post draft, all that stuff. 23-59 last season, missed the playoffs. Obviously, been a bad team for years. But the over-under this season is 28.5. I think we have ourselves a Cavs situation of last year with the Detroit Pistons. I see this line. It was shocking to me. I think they're going over. And for two big reasons, Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. What do you guys got?
Yeah, I'm going to go over. I think Cade Cunningham continues to make that next step. I really would have liked to see what Jeremy Grant would be with this group. I may sound crazy for that just because of how good he was once he got out of his situation and moved to Detroit and kind of became that number one. Plus, he's a bigger guy, so he could really stretch the floor and add some length to them. But I'm excited to see what Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, and Jaden Ivey do as a trio, not only next season, but, a couple seasons to come. I think they could be a very exciting team, could kind of compete with the Cavs. As long as Milwaukee is still good, I think they'll compete with the Cavs to try to take that number two, the lower half of the Eastern Conference playoff standings. But as far as their over or under, I have over. I could see them being a mid 30 or so win team if everybody stays healthy, as long as everybody gels and the coaching is right. I could see them being not a winning team, but a very exciting team.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think they go over, but I'm a little upset with both of you because how dare either you not mention Saddiq Bey. I think Saddiq Bey is one of the most slept on players in this league, and he's going to get so many open shots now with Cade and Ivy both there. I think Saddiq Bey is just a walking bucket, and he really doesn't have to do anything else except shoot and score for this team. I like the Pistons. I'm a little worried about their big men situation down low, but outside of that, they're going to be a fun team. They're going to be an exciting team, and Cade really, really improved at the end of last year. I know he was dealing with a little bit of injury at the start of the season, but he really came into his own. And now you get Jaden Ivey, who was one of probably the most explosive player in college basketball. He was just incredible, and he's also someone, too, who doesn't shy away from the moment. And I think the Pistons need a guy like that. They need a guy who wants to make those clutch baskets, who wants those big, intense, critical late-game situations. I think the Pistons go over. I don't think they're a playoff team this year, but I definitely think they'll be in the 30s for wins.
I'm with that. I think over. Like I said before with the Pacers, I think the Pistons and Magic are both going to be better this year, so that's kind of where they replace them. This core, like you said, Saddiq Bey, you got to add him in there. I mean, Cunningham and Ivy, even though I was just saying, guards are a dime a dozen, everything else, Cade Cunningham has a chance to be special, like you said, Amari. Like he might be able to take that next step and really be like close to a superstar this year. And Jaden Ivey is going to get buckets no matter what. Like defense, there's obviously going to be limitations in his game but I'm not going to talk about that. Dude's just going to fill it up. And honestly, him and Cade together they complement each other perfect. They take a shot at Jalen Duren too, who's a high talent, coming into college, had high hopes there. It's a solid roster all around. I think that I don't think it's a playoff roster, but like you guys said, well into the 30s, definitely easy. And to have a guy like Kemba on this team too, to like be a veteran, leader for them and everything else is going to make a huge difference for those guards and everything else. Yeah, I think they're going to be really fun, like a very fun League Pass team. Definitely terrified for their future as a noted Pistons hater on this podcast, but they're going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, people are definitely underplaying. I think Saddiq Bey, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, those guys are getting a lot of the shine, a lot of the talk, but I think people are just forgetting about the depth pieces they added. I mean, you mentioned Kemba Walker. I think their guard play in general is crazy. Like they added Alec Burks from the New York Knicks. They have Killian Hayes still, who, I think we're kind of still waiting on, but is a good talent at the guard position. Corey Joseph is a veteran point guard who has helped out a lot of teams. He started in that Greg Popovich Spurs system. So, yeah, I think they have a lot of great talent on this team that people are overlooking, and that gets me to my burning question, guys, which is who will be the alpha dog on this team next season? And I think maybe a lot of people's easy answer would be Cade Cunningham. But my only thing is, I think he was super talented last year. I think he did a lot of good things. I remember a specific game where he was attacking KD and was kind of scoring on KD, and it made it look easy. But there was glimpses of Cade last year, and even sometimes in college, where he's a star for sure, and he has star potential in the NBA. But he comes off as timid to me from time to time. And I think Jaden Ivey is actually the complete opposite of that. I mean, we saw what Jaden Ivey did at Purdue. When he's scoring and he's going off, he's loud about it. He's in your face. He's celebrating. But that he feeds off that. He's a guy who gets better, the more antics he throws into his game on the court. So who is the alpha dog on this team? Is it Cade? Is it Jaden Ivey? Is it Kelly Olynyk?
Oh my God, Kelly Olynyk. No. To answer your question, no. I think it is Cade, at least for next year. I agree with everything you said about Ivy. I think maybe going into the future, it could be him, but just because he's a rookie and he's going to be getting acclimated to that NBA culture, while Cade Cunningham not only has a year under his belt, he's already been on that team, and it seems like the city has really embraced him and vice versa. To me, it'll be him. He'll kind of grow into his own, kind of become the leader on that team for next season. But after that, I could definitely see it being Jaden Ivey. But to answer your question, next year, I think it's still Cade.
So I kind of have a little wild card. I think it will be Ivy in the future because he's crazy. But they got a tough big, and his name's Isaiah Stewart. And you don't have to be the best player in the world to be an alpha dog. You just have to get everyone else up.
Love coming out.
You just have to get everyone else up. And he's a tough dude. We've seen Isaiah Stewart this past year. He doesn't back down from anything. He speaks his mind, and he's a physical player. And sometimes when you have a lot of young guards, Cade is still very young. Ivy's young. Sadiq Bey is young. Killian Hayes is only 1 year older than Jaden Ivey. These are a young group of guards. You kind of need to have a couple tough bigs to get everyone else up. Isaiah Stewart, Nerlens Noel's another guy too that they added who could be that. But I think Isaiah Stewart's going to kind of be the dog in this locker room. He's not the best player. Everyone knows that. He's not the greatest big in the world, but he's going to get these guys up and ready for the game. And then, like Amari said, probably only because he's a rookie. He may not even be the full year. Probably halfway through the year, Ivy may become that guy because he is that type of personality. He is that type of player. But when you're a rookie coming in, it's hard to be the alpha dog as a 20-year-old rookie. So I think maybe Isaiah Stewart starts off as that kind of motivational guy, and then we see Ivy later down the road become the top dog.
Nobody Boeheim?
No.
Nobody,
no.
Not Buddy Boeheim? No? Oh, all right. Well,
No,
I think it's Cade. I think it's Cade, but I'm with you that it could be Ivy very quickly. I want to see. I mean, Ivy is, dude. He's just. I was so hurt. I think you guys know this. I was so hurt when he fell to the Pistons, just because this duo together is so perfect together. But Cade Cunningham, without it, yes, he is not as. I think, Donnie, you just said that as the aggressor and everything else as much as anything else, but the dude is just, I mean, he can do everything. He literally, I wouldn't be surprised if he's averaging close to a triple-double when he's at his peak, because he just does everything on the floor. I think that's eventually he will be that guy, and Ivy will be the scorer. I mean, now I'm talking myself back into Ivy. I think it's Cade for now, but I'm with you. It could be Ivy in a second, but I'm keeping my eye on Buddy. You never know.
And the thing about Cade, too, is we played basketball at Oklahoma State. That team was built on toughness. He was surrounded by a lot of alpha dogs there. So I think Cade, maybe he can bring some of that type of energy with him. But I also think Cade, too, he wasn't even though he was the best player by far at Oklahoma State, he really wasn't the guy who was getting everyone up. It was someone else. I think Cade's okay with that role.
Agreed. All right, guys. We got through the Central Division here. We're going to end the episode of Happy Hour Hoops with a little this or that. Starting a franchise tomorrow, guys. In Seattle, we're bringing back the Supersonics. You guys are the president of basketball operations.
Love it.
We're taking 2 point guards from this division. You can only take one to start your team with. Got Darius Garland or Tyrese Halliburton. Who are you guys taking as your point guard to start your franchise? I'll switch it up. Amari, we'll take the pressure off you. We'll start with Jake this time and go the other way. And go the other way. So we'll go Jake, Stevie, Amari. I'll give you guys my answer as well. This or that, Darius Garland or Tyrese Halliburton. Who are you starting your franchise with?
I feel like you did this just to torture me, Dunny. Like you thought of this and knowing that we've been doing this for 2 years and all the glow I've given to Tyrese Halliburton. You're like, let me do this.
I thought you were gonna go easy Garland, honestly.
No, this is when I saw that you put this in our notes, I'm still trying to debate it right now.
There really isn't a wrong answer, I don't think. But
no, there's not a wrong answer.
I'm interested why you guys say who you pick.
I'm going with Garland, and I am. It's very tough, very tough. I love Halliburton. Halliburton, as we just said about Cade, I think Halliburton can also do everything on the floor, and is just he's going to be a great leader of a franchise, whatever team he ends up on in the future, whether it's the Pacers or somebody else, to lead them into the future. But just the offensive upside that we've seen, that we knew about Garland coming when he got drafted with very little fanfare coming out, and he didn't play a lot at South Carolina and everything else. It was always, but this dude could be special offensively. And I think that it wasn't even flashes last year. He was consistently, like we said earlier in the preview with the Cavs, running everything through an offense for a team that should have, without injuries, should have been just a playoff team. That's high praise and not a place that Halliburton has reached. Now Halliburton has had, he played for Kings. Don't need to say anything more than that. And that is just kind of catching his footing now in Indiana. And he was awesome last year with Indiana too, but I'm taking Garland like with the slightest margin because I love both of these guys so much. And this is very tough to think about, but yeah, I got to go with Garland.
I was back and forth on this for a while, but and it's not because there's two Cavs fans on this pot there. I am going to go with Garland. I really like Darius Garland. The big thing for me is we saw a huge leap for year 1 to year 2 with Garland. We saw that type of leap. Halliburton had a phenomenal rookie season, and he carried that into his second year. He really did. But with Garland's leap from 2 years ago to this past season, we really saw a big jump. And when I see a big jump like that always just makes me think this guy, it clicked. Something clicked. He turned into that extra gear, and that's when I think those guys have the potential to just keep going up. Because when you don't see a huge jump like that outside the guys that really don't turn into superstars. So I really like Garland here. I went to one Cavs game this past season in Cleveland, and I love going to games because you can kind of watch the whole court rather than what they just show on the TV. Garland's awareness of where everyone is on the court when he's the point guard is remarkable. That stood out to me. I know he's a great scorer, and I think Halliburton's a great scorer too, and I know Garland averaged over 21 points a game last year. He's got a good shot. What really stood out to me is this is a guy who can average 10-plus assists a game. This is a guy who can make everyone around him better, and I think that's where he gets the slight edge over Halliburton, because I think Halliburton can do that too, but I think Garland does that to just a slightly different level. He was making some passes. He was finding some lanes that I didn't even think were close to being open. I really like Garland, and I think this is the year we're going to see Garland taking another step because he's got better scores around him this year. So I'm going to go Garland. It's not to cater to the Cavs fans because I love both these players, but Garland really showed me something with the leap he took, and I think the sky's the limit for this kid.
Yeah, I hate to take the suspense out of my answer, but I'm going to go Darius Garland. But I agree with everything both of you said, like to the T. Like both of them are very similar, and there is no wrong answer. But to preface my answer, living in Cleveland and being a Cavs fan, obviously I see much more of Darius Garland than I do Tyrese Halliburton. And so to your point, he's so dynamic as a player that his intangibles you just can't find everywhere. And so I think that is kind of the key difference between the two. But that's to take nothing away from Halliburton, because he gave us fits in those Pacers games that we had to come back from and really fight for those wins when we played against them. So when the Pacers got Halliburton, I was not a fan of it because of that reason. But no, I'm going to take Darius Garland as well, but it's by a slim margin. But it's because I see much more Darius Garland than I do Halliburton. And I can, from that, I'm obviously a little bit biased. And so to me, Garland has the edge over Halliburton in that instance.
Well, I'm glad that I went the other way, because otherwise this would be a super boring segment. But no, I think you guys make some super strong points, and honestly, I think it comes down to preference. Obviously, the biggest disparity, because as far as their games go, super similar, right? Like you guys mentioned how good of a playmaker Darius Garland is. Halliburton's a fantastic playmaker. I didn't want to use stats because of Halliburton being in two completely different situations at for halves of the season last year. Like his stats in Indiana for the second half of last year were ridiculous. Like 17.5 points per game, 50% shooting, and 9.5 assists, nearly 2 steals, and 41% from 3. Like smaller sample size, of course, because it was just for that second half of the year. But what I was getting at is these guys play super similar. My biggest thing, I think, why I take Halliburton, he's 6'5", and he does that. So he has the size advantage. I like bigger point guards. That's just how I operate. So if I was president of basketball operations, I think that would be my biggest lean towards Halliburton. And then other than that, I just think he has a little bit more of the it factor than Darius Garland does. And I don't watch the Cavs or the Pacers as much as I watch the Celtics. Obviously, you guys have the luxury of watching Garland, nearly every game. Maybe it's something that I'm missing, but I just think Halliburton, I watched him put up a 40 piece on the Boston Celtics with, when I say ease, like it was easy. And no one else on the Pacers was doing absolutely anything. Halliburton was pulling up, that's another thing. He has a super broken looking jump shot, but it is money. I mean, I just said he shot nearly 42% from 3 for half a season with Indiana. I think his playmaking is off the charts, much like Darius Garland. And these are both guys who get out and play defense. Like Garland, for his size, he still averaged just under that 2 steals a game mark. Halliburton was nearly there. So why I agree with all the reasons that you guys love Garland, I just think Halliburton has a little bit more of that it factor, and I'll just take the size. Give me Tyrese Halliburton for my point guard in Seattle.
You can't teach size. That's one thing you can't teach.
It's facts.
But yeah, so that was this or that with Darius Garland and Tyrese Halliburton. You guys took Garland. I took Halliburton for our startup franchise in Seattle, and I think that will do it, folks.
That will do it. Follow us at Happy Hour Hoops 1. Thank you, Amari, for joining the podcast. Always welcome our favorite guests here. For Stevie, for Amari, for Dunny, for Jake. This is Happy Hour Hoops. Stay hydrated. Have a great night, folks. Next week, what do we got next week? We got, I think, I'm not looking at the schedule. It's a west of it. It's either the Southwest or the Northwest. I think it's the Southwest. I think it's your boys. I think it's your boys. I think it's back there.
Those two
guys right there. Yes, you'll be a
legend.
Thank you again, Amari. Thank you all for joining. Have a great night, folks.
Later, guys.